The black mourning veil lay across the Alpha King's bedroom floor, one corner soaked in spilled wine. Elara stopped in the open doorway, the medical file pressed beneath her cloak. 7 weeks pregnant. After 5 years of whispered pity, she had come to give Adrian the miracle they had nearly stopped hoping for. Instead, Seraphine Voss stood barefoot beside their bed, fastening the widow's dress. Adrian stood near the extinguished hearth, shirt unbuttoned, his scent tangled with Seraphine's jasmine perfume. He looked powerful enough to command armies, yet suddenly incapable of meeting his wife's eyes. Elara noticed Darius Voss's blood-stained cloak draped over a chair. The dead general's silver medals caught the candlelight, shining between them like accusations. Seraphine reached for Adrian's hand. He moved it away, but too late. Elara closed the door behind her. The quiet click made Seraphine flinch. Adrian took 1 step forward, then stopped when Elara raised her palm. Her face remained composed, but beneath the cloak her fingers crushed the edge of the medical file. She asked 3 questions. "Were you conscious?" Adrian swallowed. "Yes." "Did she compel you?" "No." Elara's voice softened. "Did you remember your fated mate?" Adrian's jaw tightened. "Yes." The answer struck harder than denial. Elara lowered her hand. Seraphine said grief had broken them, that Darius died saving Adrian at Grey Pass, that loneliness blurred every boundary. Elara looked at the widow's bare feet, her husband's open collar, and the cloak still marked with Darius's blood. "Do not ever use his death to perfume this room again," she said. On Adrian's desk, beneath the royal seal, lay a council notice dated before midnight. By decree, Lady Seraphine was under widow's shield protection. Any accusation against her would be treated as an attack on military unity. Elara read Adrian's signature twice, until the ink blurred. "You signed this before coming here." He rubbed his brow. The council anticipated rumors. "No," Elara replied. "They anticipated me." Adrian stepped closer. "One night cannot destroy 8 years." His voice carried command, but not remorse. "Stay silent until the generals leave. We will handle this privately." Elara laughed. She had negotiated famines, rebellions, and border treaties. Now he was asking her to protect the throne from the consequences of his own choice. "You are not asking for privacy," she said. "You are demanding obedience." Seraphine's eyes filled with careful tears. "Elara, please. The army loved my husband." Elara turned toward her. "Then honor him by telling the truth." Seraphine's mouth tightened before grief reclaimed her expression. That failure of control told Elara more than any confession. The room had been prepared, the notice drafted, the wine poured. Whether the council planned or expected it, they were already using it. Elara left without another word. In her chamber, she locked the door and opened the medical file. Her name, the royal physician's seal, and the words "viable heir" stared back at her. For one breath, she allowed herself to imagine Adrian's hands over her stomach, his joy, their child's future. Then she folded the report, wrapped it in oilskin, and slid it inside her corset. She packed no gowns and took no jewels, only boots, coins, a map of old tunnels, and moonseed oil to hide her scent. At the vanity, the moonstone luna ring pulsed against her finger. Elara twisted it free. A pale mark circled the skin beneath, proof that bonds could become restraints. She carried the ring to Adrian's study and placed it upon the royal seal. By the time Adrian entered, Elara was already descending the hidden eastern stair. The stone passage smelled of damp earth and old iron. Above, he found the chamber empty, the tunnel open, and the ring where his authority had sealed her silence. He touched it. The moonstone flashed once, whitening the room. Then it flashed again, slower, answering a second heartbeat already beyond his walls. Elara emerged from the eastern tunnel beneath a sky without stars. Rain had begun to fall over Blackthorn, thin and cold, washing the palace scent from her cloak. She rubbed moonseed oil along her throat and wrists, masking Adrian's cedar scent and her own jasmine trace. Beneath her ribs, the fractured mate bond tightened like wire pulled through living flesh, but she kept walking north. Every step away from the royal grounds sharpened the pain. By the time she reached the abandoned supply road, nausea folded her over beside a stone marker. She braced one hand against the wet earth and covered her stomach with the other. "Stay with me," She whispered to the child Adrian had already called an heir without knowing its name. Then she stood again. At the palace, Adrian stared at the moonstone ring while its second pulse faded. Panic struck before reason could contain it. Elder Malrek arrived within minutes, accompanied by Beta Jonah and 3 armed captains. "She has taken the royal heir," Malrek said. Adrian turned on him with a growl. "She has taken our child." "The crown recognizes no difference," Malrek replied, presenting a warrant. The warrant declared Alara a flight risk and authorized immediate retrieval. Jonah noticed the language before Adrian did. Royal property, secured alive if possible. Moonless passage forbids pursuit for 30 days after proven betrayal, Jonah warned. Malrek smiled. Pregnancy changes jurisdiction. Adrian hesitated, imagining Alara alone, bleeding somewhere beyond the walls. Then fear disguised itself as authority. He signed the order with shaking fingers. Alara reached the old quartermaster's station before dawn. Inside, she found a council notice already nailed beside the door. Her likeness appeared beneath the word abductor, and the royal seal gleamed in fresh red wax. A laugh escaped her, brittle and humorless. "Efficient," she murmured. "He could not choose me quickly, but he can hunt me before breakfast." She tore it down carefully whole. The supply road curved toward the neutral river, but Alara left it where the pines thickened. She knew Blackthorn's patrol rotations because she had written them. Twice, she heard wolves moving behind her. Twice, she doubled back through streams, scattering moonseed over false tracks. The third time, a metallic click sounded beneath the leaves. Silver wire snapped around her left wrist violently before sunrise broke. Pain burst white behind her eyes. Alara bit down on a scream as the snare dragged her toward a pine trunk. Tracker voices approached through the rain. She reached the silver dagger at her thigh, sliced once, then again. The wire cut deeper, burning the flesh black at its edges. When it finally broke, blood ran into her palm. She wrapped the wound and ran. Behind her, Jonah reached the broken snare and crouched beside the blood on the leaves. One captain raised his nose. "She is close." Jonah looked toward the river, then deliberately pointed west. "Her scent turns there." It was a lie, his first act of disobedience. He told himself he was honoring ancient law, not betraying his alpha, but his wolf knew better already by then. The neutral river thundered between black cliffs, swollen by rain and snowmelt. Alara staggered onto the bank as bond pain seized her chest. For one terrifying moment, her vision vanished. She knelt, pressing her uninjured hand against her abdomen until the spasm passed. Hoofbeats sounded behind her. No bridge stood nearby. No sanctuary waited on this side. She stepped into the water without looking back. The current struck like a living beast. It tore her feet from the stones and spun her beneath the surface. Alara fought upward, one arm useless, lungs burning. Her boots scraped the far bank. She dragged herself onto ironwood soil and collapsed. Wolves wearing ironwood crests emerged from the trees. Their amber-eyed captain knelt, saw the air mark and whispered, "Alara Vale, Luna of Blackthorn." Alara woke to the scent of cedar smoke, bitter herbs, and snow. Her left wrist throbbed beneath clean bandages. A stone ceiling arched above her, unfamiliar and severe. She tried to rise, but pain tightened across her abdomen. Instantly, one hand covered the child hidden beneath her ribs. Cassian watched. He sat beside the narrow bed in a dark military coat, amber eyes fixed on every movement. No crown marked him, yet the room bent around his authority. Alara recognized Ironwood's alpha before he introduced himself. "Where is my medical file?" she asked. His expression shifted, almost approvingly, with interest. "Locked away," Cassian replied. The river ruined nothing important. Alara swung her feet toward the floor. The room tilted, forcing her back against the pillows. Cassian did not touch her. He poured water instead. "Your body needs rest." "My body needs distance from Blackthorn," she answered. "Rest is negotiable today." A faint sound escaped him, not quite laughter. "You crossed into my territory carrying a royal heir and a severed wrist. Forgive me for questioning your bargaining position." Alara accepted the water. "I still have one." Cassian leaned forward. "Then tell me why Darius Voss believed you would need sanctuary." The name silenced her. Cassian placed a folded page on the blanket. A dark fingerprint stained its corner, unmistakably blood. Half the message was written in military cipher. The visible line read, "If the Luna crosses your border, the Crown has already betrayed her." Alara's fingers tightened around the page. "Where did you get this?" "Darius sent it 3 weeks before Grey Pass." Cassian studied her carefully. "He asked me to protect you if you ever left Adrian." Elara looked toward the frosted window. A dead man had prepared for her danger. Her mate missed it while she stood there. Before Elara could question him further, shouting erupted downstairs. 2 children from the refugee camp had collapsed after swallowing fever tonic. Cassian ordered her to remain in bed. She ignored him, wrapped the blanket around her shoulders, and followed the healers. "You wanted to know my bargaining position. Watch closely." The children convulsed on adjoining tables, their lips turning gray. A young healer reached for wolfsbane antidote. Elara stopped her wrist. "Not wolfsbane, moonroot." She smelled the tonic, checked their pupils, then ordered charcoal, salt water, and heated blankets. Cassian's gaze sharpened as the room obeyed her without hesitation or confusion. One child stopped breathing. Elara pressed rhythmically against his chest while another healer forced antidote between his teeth. Seconds stretched, then the boy coughed, spraying black liquid across Elara's borrowed blanket. She closed her eyes briefly. "Good," she murmured. "I was beginning to dislike that blanket anyway." Cassian almost smiled. By dusk, both children were stable. Elara stood over the tonic bottles, studying their wax seals. The mark belonged to Blackthorn's Royal Dispensary, but the shipment number had been scraped away. Cassian placed a hand beside hers, careful not to touch. "Someone is moving moonroot through my refugee camps deliberately, and someone expected sick children to hide the trail," Elara replied. Cassian nodded toward the page from Darius. "Help me trace the shipments and decode his message. In return, Ironwood will honor your sanctuary for 30 days. Elara met his eyes. "My child remains under my protection." "Completely," he answered. That night, Cassian escorted her into Ironwood's archive. Maps, ledgers, and military reports covered a long oak table. He produced the page again, then revealed another object, a brass cipher wheel, engraved with Darius's crest. "The second half of the code is missing," he said. "Without it, this remains useless." Elara examined the blood seal and remembered the cloak abandoned in Adrian's bedroom, its torn lining dark with Grey Pass blood. Darius had hidden something inside it. Cassian saw recognition cross her face. "You know where the key is," she nodded. "Inside the palace where Adrian betrayed me that night." 6 weeks after crossing Ironwood's border, Elara stood before its council with a scar circling her left wrist and a ledger open beneath her hands. The room smelled of wool, lamp oil, and suspicion. 3 elders watched her as if Cassian had invited a knife to supper. Elder Bram looked at her stomach, then at the numbers. "The Luna thinks she can manage our grain?" Elara turned one page. "Your western storehouse reported 12,000 sacks. It received 8,000, distributed 3, and claims 10 remain." Bram's mouth tightened. "A copying error." Then the same clerk made identical errors at 2 mountain depots. She tapped 3 altered entries written in darker ink. "Someone is stealing food, hiding it as bandit loss, and counting on winter to bury the evidence completely." Cassian did not defend her. He folded his arms and said, "Prove it." By noon, Elara had authority to inspect 3 warehouses, but no soldiers. Bram called that fairness. She called it cowardice privately and accepted. At the first depot, she found broken locks, scattered flour, and boot prints arranged too neatly. Real thieves took grain. These thieves had left expensive medicine untouched behind deliberately. Inside one crate, a scraped wax seal matched the moonroot bottles that had poisoned the refugee children. Elara compared delivery dates, road closures, and snowfall records until the pattern appeared. Every robbery happened when a council patrol changed shifts. The stolen grain disguised wagons moving south, while moonroot traveled north beneath medicine labels. Cassian studied her map. "How do we catch thieves without warning them?" Elara drew a route through Frostjaw Pass. "We give them what they expect." She proposed a decoy convoy, carrying marked grain sacks and false medical manifests. A hidden team would wait above the pass with signal mirrors. Bram objected that the slope was unstable. Elara agreed. That is why they will use it. Criminals trust danger when they believe honest people are afraid of it. At dusk, the convoy entered the pass with Elara riding beside 6 volunteers. Cassian followed at a distance, honoring her plan while refusing to leave her unprotected. The attack came where predicted. Masked wolves rolled burning logs downhill and rushed the wagons. Elara raised a mirror. Sunlight flashed twice across the ridge. Ironwood archers sealed the northern exit behind the raiders before anyone could retreat. One attacker shifted early and struck Elara's horse. She hit the snow hard, shielding her abdomen as the animal fell away. A young soldier broke formation to help her and caught a blade across his shoulder. The mistake was hers. She had placed him too close. Fury sharpened her focus. She cut a loaded rope, releasing packed snow across the southern trail with brutal force. The controlled slide buried no one, but it trapped the raiders between stone and archers. Cassian's warriors disarmed them. Inside the lead wagon, Elara found grain beneath a false floor and moonroot, packed in healer crates. One prisoner wore an Ironwood quartermaster's badge. Bram had not merely doubted her. Someone inside Cassian's administration had sold patrol schedules to Blackthorn for silver and royal political protection. Back at Ironwood Keep, the wounded soldier survived. Elara apologized to him before presenting the evidence to the council. She accepted responsibility for placing him badly, then explained why the convoy still succeeded. Cassian named her strategic advisor for the duration of Sanctuary. Bram protested. Cassian silenced him with one question. Which of you found the theft before she arrived or saved the missing grain? Later, alone in the archive, Elara opened the captured shipment ledger. Payment codes linked the Moonroot route to Elder Malrek's office, but another name stopped her breathing. Royal physician Gideon Price had received monthly transfers for 5 years, beginning the week he prescribed Elara's fertility medicine. Cassian read over her shoulder. Beneath Gideon's name, one notation remained. Continue dosage until the Vale bloodline is extinguished. 4 months after Elara vanished, Blackthorn's council chamber smelled of cold ashes and spoiled grain. Adrian stood over a table buried beneath cancelled trade agreements, ration complaints, and border petitions. 3 allied pacts had suspended deliveries. 2 captains threatened resignation. Every document bore some variation of the explanation. Luna Elara had managed the matter, and no one else knew the arrangement she had created. He had once called her ledgers tedious. Now he read them until dawn, searching for instructions she had never expected him to need. In the margin of a winter ration report, Elara had written, "If Malrek controls the Widow Fund, audit the military reserve." Adrian traced her handwriting with one finger. He missed her, but shamefully, he first understood her loss through failing systems everywhere. Seraphine entered wearing silver silk instead of morning black. Her left hand rested over her abdomen with practiced delicacy. Malrek followed, smiling before anyone spoke. "The crown has received its answer," he announced. Seraphine lowered her eyes. "I am carrying Adrian's child." The room erupted. Adrian heard congratulations, chairs scraping, and Seraphine's heartbeat, steady enough to make his wolf uneasy beneath the noise around him. She presented a medical file sealed by royal physician Gideon Price. The dates appeared correct at first glance. Adrian should have felt relief. Instead, he remembered the moonstone ring flashing twice over Elara's abandoned seal, and the warrant describing his unborn child as royal property. "How far along?" he asked. Seraphine answered too quickly. "Almost 4 months." Malrek interrupted before Adrian could calculate anything further. That evening, the Luna ceremony was held privately in the Great Hall. Only the council, Jonah, Gideon, and selected guards attended. Adrian had refused a public coronation until Elara's bond was severed, but Malrek demanded symbolic stability. Seraphine approached in white, smiling as though the title already belonged to her. On a velvet cushion, the ancestral ring looked darker than polished stone under torchlight tonight. Adrian lifted it, feeling the same unnatural cold that had filled Elara's empty chamber. Seraphine extended her hand. For 1 second, he saw Elara's pale finger beneath his own, remembered placing the ring there 8 years earlier, and almost stopped. Malrek whispered, "For the kingdom." Adrian slid the band onto Seraphine. The moonstone remained black. No pulse answered her heartbeat. No Luna aura rose anywhere. Then Seraphine gasped. A red line appeared beneath the silver, circling her finger like heated wire. She tried to pull the ring free, but it tightened. Gideon reached for her hand. Adrian seized his wrist instead. "Why is it rejecting her?" Malrek answered calmly. "It is not rejection. Ilara remains bonded to you. Ancient objects resist transition." The explanation sounded rehearsed long before this moment. Adrian tore the ring from Seraphine's hand. Her skin blistered where Ilara had worn it without pain. Silence spread through the hall. Seraphine began crying, accusing Ilara's lingering bond of cursing her. Adrian barely heard her. He remembered Ilara's face in the bedroom, not broken, but finished. For the first time, he wondered whether the ring had recognized what he had refused to see then. After the others left, Jonah remained beside the council table with Seraphine's medical file. He compared Gideon's signature against earlier reports, then checked the ink beneath magnifying glass. The seal was genuine. The timeline was not. A notation placed Seraphine's examination 9 days before the memorial night. Another page described fetal movement impossible at the stage. Someone had built the pregnancy backward from a deadline. Jonah carried the file to Adrian's study, but voices stopped him outside. Malrek was telling Seraphine the ceremony would resume once the council obtained Ilara's child. Seraphine hissed that Adrian might discover the dates. Malrek replied, "Then give him grief, tears, and another war." Jonah looked down at Gideon's signature, dated before betrayal occurred, and understood the Luna had been prepared before Adrian touched her. Snow pressed against Ironwood's archive windows, while Ilara arranged 5 years of payment records beside the captured medicine ledger. Cassian stood across the oak table, silent, as healer Nessa uncorked a brown vial recovered from Ilara's belongings. The liquid smelled faintly of honey, bitter root, and metal. Ilara recognized it immediately. "Gideon called this fertility support," she said. "Test everything before we decide what it was." Nessa worked beneath Moonfire, while Cassian compared shipment codes. The reagent turned from clear to black. "Not support," the healer said. "This suppresses ovulation, weakens a Luna's scent cycle, and damages conception over time." Ilara did not move. Her scarred wrist rested beside the vial. "Who signed the prescriptions?" she asked. "Who transported them? Who paid?" Cassian watched her turn devastation into questions without breaking. The ledger answered first. Gideon Price received monthly transfers through Malrek's Widow Fund. The medicine traveled inside military relief crates, bypassing civilian inspection. Nessa found another notation in Mira Quinn's hand, dated 3 months before Ilara conceived. Dosage changed. Patient endangered. Ilara's breath caught. Mira had discovered the poison and secretly replaced it with harmless herbs. The healer had risked execution for Ilara to conceive. Ilara left the archive before anyone could offer comfort. In the empty chapel, she pressed both hands over her stomach and finally let the tears come. For 5 years, she had apologized to Adrian after every failed cycle. She had endured council whispers, physicians' pity, and Seraphine's careful sympathy. Her body had never betrayed him. Men around the throne poisoned her. He never asked why. Cassian found her after the bells marked midnight. He stopped outside the chapel and waited until she wiped her face. "I will not tell you that none of this was your fault," he said. "You already know." Ilara looked at him. Knowing is not the same as believing. He placed Darius's cipher wheel on the altar, offering work instead of touch, then find undeniable proof. They returned to the archive and aligned Darius's symbols with wartime supply routes. Each crescent represented food, each claw represented weapons, and every black circle marked a soldier declared dead. Gray Pass contained too many black circles before the battle occurred. Cassian rotated the wheel. Hidden words emerged. Convoy diverted, scouts recalled, rescue delayed. Darius had not entered an unfortunate ambush. Malrek opened the road. The final symbols directed them to an ancient volume locked beneath Ironwood's treaty vault. Its pages described the first Luna Clause, written in Aveline Vale's blood after the founding war. If her direct descendant carried a royal heir, the Seven Claw Council could claim no regency over mother or child. Once the heir touched the Moonstone Ring, every emergency power granted to the council dissolved. Ilara understood why Malrek feared her pregnancy. The child was not merely Adrian's successor. Aren, though she had not spoken the name aloud, could end the council's control over Blackthorn. Cassian read the next passage. The mother may choose the existing throne, a lawful alliance, or sovereign territory. Ilara touched the page carefully. For the first time, ancient law offered a future entirely beyond Adrian. The archive doors opened before dawn. An ironwood guard entered, carrying parchment sealed in black wax. Blackthorn had issued a warrant accusing Ilara of treason, theft of succession, and conspiracy with a rival alpha. It authorized crown forces to cross Ironwood's border and suspend sanctuary law. Cassian's aura darkened as he read. Adrian signed this. Ilara accepted the parchment. His signature was unmistakable beneath Malrek's. She read the final clause twice. The heir was to be returned alive and unharmed. No identical protection applied to the mother. Cassian reached for the war bell, but Ilara stopped him. Fear sharpened into something colder than grief. "They are not coming to bring me home," she said. Outside, Ironwood's warning horns began sounding across the mountains. "They are coming only for my child." At Blackthorn, Seraphine waited until the palace bells marked 2 before slipping into the archive corridor. She wore mourning black again, though Darius had been dead for months and grief no longer softened her face. Jonah followed at a distance, carrying a memory crystal inside his coat. He had spent 3 nights tracing Malrek's passages, and tonight, the widow finally led him toward the truth. Behind a carved wall panel, Malrek waited beside Darius's blood-stained cloak. Seraphine snatched it from him. "You promised my coronation after Adrian accepted the child." Malrek's smile never warmed. "Your usefulness ends when Ilara's heir is secured." Seraphine went still. Jonah pressed his thumb against the crystal. Pale light flickered, recording every word while the widow realized she had never been intended to rule alone. Seraphine's fury broke through her practiced sorrow. She demanded the Luna ceremony before Adrian discovered the false dates. Malrek reminded her that Gideon could forge another report, but the cloak had to disappear. Darius had sewn his missing cipher into its lining. Seraphine seized a lamp, poured oil across the fabric, and struck a match. Jonah stepped from hiding before the flame touched blood again. Adrian arrived behind Jonah, his aura cracking through the corridor. Seraphine dropped the match, but the ring on her finger began to glow red. Adrian looked from the cloak to Jonah's recording crystal. "Tell me the pregnancy is real." Seraphine's silence answered first. Then she confessed Gideon had prepared the file, and Malrek had supplied moonroot for the wine before the memorial began that evening. "Did it take away my will?" Adrian asked. Seraphine shook her head, tears turning desperate. "It lowered your restraint. I only opened the door." The truth struck him with merciless precision. He had been manipulated, but not controlled. No drug had forced his hands, his mouth, or his betrayal. When he removed the ring from Seraphine, it burned a blistered circle into her skin immediately. Across the mountains, Ilara traveled beneath Ironwood Guard toward a hidden healer station. Her child's heartbeat had remained strong, but Cassian refused unnecessary risk. The convoy entered a narrow cedar valley at sunset. Birds burst from the trees moments before silver canisters shattered against the lead wagon. Dust flooded the road, bright as frost, burning every wolf who drew breath through the cloud around them. Ilara covered her mouth and dropped behind a wheel as arrows struck the carriage. Silver dust entered through her nose, slicing down her throat. Pain clenched low across her abdomen. Cassian shifted, his black wolf tearing through 2 mercenaries, while guards formed a wall around her. Ilara tried to stand, but warmth spread beneath her dress, and terror erased every thought except Aran inside her. One attacker fled with a copied medical file strapped beneath his coat. Cassian could have pursued him, but Ilara collapsed before he reached the tree line. He chose her. At the healer station, Nessa listened for the child while Ilara gripped the table until her scar split open. The heartbeat came faintly, then steadied. Early labor had begun, but had not yet claimed her completely. Before dawn, an Ironwood rider arrived, carrying a blood-red summons from Blackthorn. The 7 Claw Council had called a blood moon trial. Ilara was ordered to surrender herself, her medical records, and the unborn heir. Until judgment, the child would become a ward of the crown. Cassian crushed the wax seal. "They attacked you, and now they call it law." Ilara read every line twice. Ilara pushed herself despite Nessa's protest. Her face was pale, her breathing shallow, but her voice carried the authority Blackthorn had tried to bury. She gathered Darius's cipher, the poison ledger, and the warrant, authorizing her death. "They expect me to hide until Aaron is born," she said. Cassian met her gaze. Elara folded the summons. "Prepare the carriage. I am going back to Blackthorn." Blackthorn's iron gates opened beneath a hard gray sky. Elara sat upright inside the carriage, one hand resting over her 7-month belly, the other curled around Ironwood's sanctuary seal. Cassian rode beside the door with 12 neutral guards behind him. No banners announced conquest. No army threatened the walls. Yet the silence beyond the gates felt heavier than war. Pack members lined the road toward the palace. Some stared at Elara's scarred wrist. Others stared at the child Adrian had ordered returned without promising her life. When the carriage stopped, Elara stepped down without accepting Cassian's hand. Her boots touched Blackthorn soil, and the fractured mate bond tore across her chest. She breathed once, then raised the sanctuary seal. "Elara Vale, protected witness of Ironwood and bearer of a sovereign claim," she said. "I enter under the neutral accord." The captain at the gate looked toward Adrian, who waited at the palace steps. Adrian nodded. Before the guards could move, an elderly woman in the crowd dropped to one knee. Then another wolf knelt. Within seconds, the road bowed before Elara. She did not smile. "Stand up," she ordered gently. "No one kneels because I survived what your rulers allowed." The wolves rose, shame and recognition moving through them. Adrian's eyes remained fixed on her stomach. Elara looked past him and presented the seal to Jonah. She would not let the first moment of her return belong to the man who had made escape necessary. They had barely reached the great hall when a border horn sounded. A messenger stumbled inside, reporting that Blackthorn's eastern patrol had been surrounded. Malrek demanded an emergency decree and immediate command of the royal guard. Elara studied the map carried by the messenger. 3 supply markers were reversed. The attack was not designed to capture the border. It was designed to empty the capital. "The western tunnel still connects to the old grain road," Elara said. Adrian frowned. "That passage collapsed years ago." "The public entrance did." She pointed to a narrow line beneath the ridge. "Send Jonah with 20 riders through the maintenance shaft. Light 3 fires at Hollow Rock. The attackers will believe reinforcements arrived behind them and withdraw before the capital loses its defenses." Adrian gave the order. An hour later, the Eastern Patrol reported the enemy retreating without a battle. Malrek's face hardened. Elara folded the map. "Someone wanted your army outside these walls before the trial," she said. "Now we know why." Cassian watched the council elders exchange glances. He said nothing, but his hand remained near his sword. Adrian found Elara in the empty council chamber before sunset. For several seconds, neither spoke. His gaze settled on the curve beneath her cloak, then on the silver scar around her wrist. "I am sorry," he said. The words sounded smaller than the room. "I can bring you both home. I can protect you now." Elara placed his warrant on the table between them. "This is your protection." Adrian flinched at his signature. "Malrek changed the language after I approved the search." "You still approved the hunt." Her voice remained quiet. "A home is not a place a woman must escape to keep her child safe from its father." Adrian had faced armies without retreating. He had no defense against that truth. Before Adrian could answer, the great hall doors slammed shut. Across the chamber, hidden locks clicked into place beneath the council benches silently. Iron bars dropped across every exit. Council guards surrounded Cassian's escort, while Malrek climbed the dais holding a black-sealed decree. "The trial begins now," he announced. "Elara Vale enters not as a witness, but as an accused traitor." Jonah reached for his blade. Adrian turned toward Malrek, stunned by the speed of the coup. Elara did not move. Malrek raised the decree higher. "Until this child is born, neither mother nor heir leaves Blackthorn alive." Blood moonlight poured through the high windows as Malrek ordered the guards to seize Elara. Cassian drew his sword, but she lifted one hand. "No blood before testimony," she said. Her voice crossed the locked hall more sharply than steel. Adrian remained below the dais, staring at the decree that had turned his wife and unborn son into prisoners under his crown that night. Elara placed 4 objects upon the council table: the poison ledger, Darius's cipher wheel, Gideon's signed prescriptions, and Adrian's warrant. Jonah added Seraphine's false medical file and the memory crystal from the hidden corridor. "These are not accusations," Elara said. They are a chain. Follow every link, and it ends at the Seven Claw Council. Murmurs spread among 5 packs gathered behind the iron rails nearby. The crystal awakened first. Seraphine's recorded voice filled the hall, demanding a coronation, before Adrian discovered the false pregnancy. Malrek's answer followed, cold and unmistakable. She was useful only until Ilara's heir could be secured. Seraphine stepped backward as every grieving soldier heard her trade Darius's sacrifice for a crown. It was fear, she whispered. It was survival. Ilara met her eyes. It was choice. Gideon Price was dragged before the blood oath stone. When his palm touched its black surface, silver veins climbed his arm. He confessed that Ilara's medicine had suppressed fertility for 5 years, that Mira Quinn had secretly replaced it, and that Seraphine had never carried Adrian's child. The oath stone cracked beneath his hand when he tried to deny Malrek's monthly payments through widow funds. Malrek called the confession coerced and demanded the moonstone ring. A guard placed it between Seraphine and Ilara. Seraphine touched it first. The stone stayed black, then burned her fingers until she screamed. Ilara approached without reaching for it. 2 white pulses moved through the moonstone, one answering her heartbeat, the second answering Aaron. Across the hall, wolves lowered their heads to the true Luna. Malrek struck the dais with his staff. Emergency regency is invoked. Council guards turned their spears toward Ilara, while hidden archers appeared above Cassian's escort. Adrian finally understood the border attack, the locked doors, and the trial had been pieces of one coup. Yet understanding did not absolve him. His signature had opened every door Malrek now used against her and their child tonight. Adrian stepped between the spears and Ilara. Malrek smiled. Move, or lose your throne. For years, Adrian had answered every threat with command. This time, he removed the royal signet from his hand and cut his palm across its edge. Blood struck the floor. By the king's surrender oath, I renounce absolute command, succession ownership, and every emergency power held through my crown forever. The hall shook as ancient wards broke. Malrek's decree split down the center, and the Alpha command binding the council guards vanished. Jonah moved first, disarming the nearest captain. Cassian's soldiers closed around the dais without striking civilians. Malrek ran toward a side passage, but Seraphine blocked him. You promised me everything. He shoved her aside. Jonah caught Malrek before he reached the door alive. Silence returned when Ilara faced Adrian. His blood still marked the floor between them. I did this too late, he said. Yes, she answered. No comfort softened the truth. She placed her scarred left hand over the moonstone ring and invoked First Luna's severance. The fractured mate bond tightened once, then tore free. Adrian dropped to one knee, but Ilara remained standing alone before everyone. The ring rose in white fire, revealing 3 lawful choices above the council table. Blackthorn's throne, alliance with Ironwood, or sovereign land between them. Adrian looked at the first, Cassian looked at none. Ilara studied the empty territory where exiles, widows, and unclaimed children had nowhere to belong. Then she opened the map, placed her finger on the borderlands, and said, This is what I choose. 1 year after the Blood Moon trial, spring sunlight covered Moonhaven's new stone walls. Children ran between gardens planted where armies once camped, while widows managed warehouses that had been purchased with the council's confiscated gold. Ilara stood on the central terrace with Aaron sleeping against her chest. The scar around her left wrist remained silver, but the hand supporting her son no longer trembled. Moonhaven had accepted 300 refugees in its first year. Severed mates, rogue children, injured soldiers, and mothers fleeing succession claims. Ilara's first law declared that no heir belonged to a crown before belonging to the parent who protected them. The decree carried no alpha seal. It bore her own name, the elected title High Luna, and the white imprint of the moonstone ring alone. Malrek lived beneath the moonless vault under permanent blood oath. Gideon Price had lost his healer's mark and spent his days recording every false prescription he had written. Seraphine worked at Grey Abbey, where each coin she earned returned to the widow's fund she had helped steal. No one called her Lady Voss there. Darius's name belonged to the soldiers he had tried to save. Adrian arrived at Moonhaven without soldiers, banners, or a crown. He waited outside the nursery until Ilara invited him inside. The former Alpha King looked older than 37, though only 1 year had passed. Aaron watched him from Alara's arms with solemn gray eyes. Adrian did not reach for the child. He had learned that entitled love was another form of command in disguise. "You may hold him," Alara said. Adrian's breath caught before he accepted Aaron carefully. The baby gripped one of his fingers, unaware of thrones, betrayals, or surnames. Adrian's eyes filled, but he made no request for forgiveness. "I will follow every boundary you set," he said. Alara believed he meant it. Belief, however, was no longer the same as surrendering her future to him again. After Adrian left, Cassian found Alara near the eastern gate, inspecting a shelter roof before the evening rain. He had visited Moonhaven often as warden of the Neutral Accord, never staying longer than invited. Their trust had grown through councils, supply disputes, sleepless nights with a feverish child, and long silences that demanded nothing from either of them except honesty, patience, respect, and free choice. Cassian held out a small wooden box. Inside rested a moonstone pendant, made from a fragment of the shattered oath stone. It carried no royal crest and no binding magic. "This is not a claim," he said. "It is only proof that broken things can become something chosen." Alara lifted the pendant, feeling its cool weight settle against her palm without tightening around her throat. 1 year, Cassian continued. No oath, no mark, no political conditions. We learn who we are when nobody needs rescuing. At the end, you choose again. Alara looked toward the nursery window, where Aaron's cradle stood beneath morning curtains. Then she looked across Moonhaven, at roofs built by people the old packs had discarded, and roads leading in every direction far beyond its open gates. She fastened the pendant around her neck herself. Cassian's hands remained at his sides. 1 year, she agreed. "And if I say no after that," his expression softened, "then I thank you for the truth and leave your gates peacefully." Alara smiled, not because he promised devotion, but because he understood that her refusal would never become a punishment or private debt between them later. From the courtyard, Aaron began laughing at something his nurse had done. Alara turned toward the sound, sunlight catching the pendant and the moonstone ring displayed above Moonhaven's open doors. She had once waited for a ring, a mate, and a kingdom to confirm her worth. Now, every door opened by her authority. For the first time, she alone decided who could walk beside her. So, this is where Alara's story closes. Are you still here with me? If you are, then you already understand why her greatest victory was not defeating the council, exposing Seraphine, or making Adrian regret what he had done. Her greatest victory was refusing to abandon herself after everyone else had. She was betrayed. She was misunderstood. She was hunted by the very people she once protected. And still, she did not beg for a place in a life that had already disrespected her. That does not mean she felt no pain. Strength is not pretending the wound does not hurt. It is knowing the wound is real and still refusing to let it choose your future. We cannot control whether someone keeps a promise, tells the truth, or sees our value before losing us. We can control what we tolerate, where we place our energy, and whether we keep handing our dignity back to people who have already dropped it. And honestly, anyone who needs a royal trial, an ancient blood law, and a glowing ring to recognize your worth may be a little late to the meeting. If Alara's choice spoke to you, comment one word below: dignity. And if this story stayed with you, please like, share, and subscribe. Your support helps more stories like this find the people who need them. Dedict logo.